So you're running out of closet space. The good news? You don't need to stop shopping. You just need to start selling with The RealReal. The RealReal is the world's largest and most trusted resource for authenticated luxury resale. Whether it's that mini bag that can't even fit your phone, or those boots you never fully broke in, The RealReal handles everything from photography and copywriting to shipping and pricing. So you can just sit back, get paid, and make room for things that actually feel like you. And with 10,000 plus new arrivals every single day from top designers like Prada, Celine, Louis Vuitton, and Loewe, all for up to 90% off retail, you're bound to find something perfectly on brand to fill that extra closet space with. Plus, right now, you can get an extra $100 to shop when you sell for the first time. Make room for what feels like you. Go to therealreal.com to start selling and get your extra $100 to keep shopping at therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com. Terms apply.
It's a Tuesday afternoon in April 1991. The shop's quiet. There's a few regulars, the typical low-key chit-chat, a bit of Bryan Adams on the FM radio station. Exactly the kind of vibe you'd expect from a small-town hair salon in the middle of the week. Claire Acocks is working alone at the Old London Coiffure, an uncharacteristically fancy name for a shop in the sleepy Victorian seaside town of Portland. She's done this shift 1,000 times. She knows the rhythm of this room, the chemical bite of the perm solution, the soft hiss of the basin tap, the particular way the afternoon light comes through the front window and settles across the waiting chairs. It's a sign that a long day on her feet is slowly coming to an end. She doesn't hear the door. And that's the first strange element of this story. The door to the Old London Coiffure has a bell. It sounds when someone enters. But the man who is suddenly standing behind her came in without making a sound. She sees him in the mirror. He's watching her. He has long hair, and there's something in his eyes that she can't describe, and she wouldn't want to. He says, calmly, coldly, "I don't like hairdressers. I'll be back." Claire Acocks locks up the salon and goes home early. She tells her friends she has never in her life been so frightened. That is April the 17th, 1991. 16 days later, tragedy strikes inside that salon. And the man who can sneak in past the ringing doorbell is never identified. I'm your storyteller, Mark, and welcome back to Struth. Today we head to Portland, in the bottom left-hand corner of Victoria, where the land runs out and the Southern Ocean takes over. It's Victoria's oldest permanent European settlement. A deep-water port city that has been trading since 1834 and has watched wool ships and timber ships and container ships move in and out through weather that does not care for schedules. In 1991, Portland has around 10,000 inhabitants, and a particular kind of quiet. The quiet of a town that has seen better decades. The early 1990s recession has hit hard. Shops on Bentnick Street sit empty, their windows are papered over. Unemployment is climbing. The Pyramid Building Society has just collapsed, taking people's savings with it. Western Victoria is hurting. And Portland, perhaps most of all. The one exception is the aluminium smelter. Alcoa opened a plant here in the late 1980s, a massive industrial operation on the edge of town that brought with it construction workers, engineers, contractors and transient labour from across the country. People who didn't know anyone. People who came and went. Portland has always been a port town, which meant it knew how to absorb strangers. But the smelter brought more of them faster than the town could absorb. There are people here now that nobody can quite account for. And it's in this town on a Friday afternoon that two women find themselves sitting at a corner hair salon. Claire Acocks is 49 years old. She works part-time at the old London coiffure, has done for years. And she's the kind of hairdresser people come back to. Not just for the cut, but for the conversation. She's got 3 adult children, a husband named Peter, and the particular satisfaction of a life carefully built over time. And at the moment, in between appointments, she's busy knitting a jumper for a grandson who hasn't been born yet. And she's got $500 saved in an old wallet, set aside for a trip to Melbourne to visit her pregnant daughter. And she's really looking forward to it. Margaret Penny is 58, originally from Scotland, with the Scottish habit of precision and a Scottish sense of what it means to keep a house properly. She and her husband Robert have been married for 36 years. They've spent most of those years away from Portland, raising their children, making a life elsewhere. But 7 months ago, they decided to come back. Robert had history here, and Margaret was making peace with being home. She has a regular Friday appointment here with Claire, not every week, but often enough that it's a fixture. And today she's having her hair coloured before the trip to Melbourne. She's pre-ordered sandwiches at the Ocean Pier tea rooms down the road, and she's hoping to be there by 3:15, she's told them, for afternoon tea with her friend Shirley. Both Margaret and Robert are also minding their 5-year-old granddaughter for the day. The little girl, the child of their daughter Jacqueline, is at home currently with Robert while Margaret is out and about. So two women on a completely ordinary Friday, discussing everything they've got planned for the weekend and the week after, and perhaps even the decades after that. The salon that they're in, the old London coiffure, occupies the ground floor of the old London Inn, a bluestone building put up in 1844. And it's as solid as the century that made it, on the corner of Julia and Bentnick Streets in the middle of Portland shopping district. Upstairs, there's a dental surgery, and on the street level, the salon. There are 3 rooms inside, a reception area at the front, a main hairdressing space divided down the middle by a mirrored partition, and at the rear a small shampoo room, 3 black chairs, a washing basin, and a door that opens onto a communal courtyard shared by several businesses. The courtyard connects to the street through large iron gates, and on a working Friday, those gates stand open. The salon has 2 entrances. The front door goes out onto Bentnick Street and the back door into the courtyard. Both are accessible and both are unlocked during business hours. Claire starts her shift at around 1 o'clock. She sees 2 clients during the early afternoon, straightforward appointments. No incidents. Nothing to raise concern. Margaret arrives at a little after 3. She's running late, but no matter, she's here now. And there's a chair in the shampoo room and a colour to apply, and an afternoon that stretches out ahead of them. In offices across the rear courtyard, 2 men are working at their desks. At some point between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, they hear screaming, high-pitched, sharp. The kind of sound that stops you. One of them sees the rear screen door fling open. He hears a wooden door slam hard behind it, and then silence. They decide fatefully that it must be children playing, so they go back to work. At 4:30, the owner of the salon, Kay Edwards, arrives. She's expected to collect Claire after a shift. A dental receptionist from upstairs comes with her. The front door is bolted, and so's the back door. both are locked strangely from the inside, which has never happened before during business hours. Not once. They have never, in all the time the salon has been here, arrived to find both doors locked while Claire was working. They find a way in, and the shampoo room is dark, no lights. And on the floor, 2 pairs of legs extending from beneath black hairdressing capes draped over 2 bodies, positioned head to toe. Margaret Penny is face down. Her throat's been cut. She's been stabbed multiple times across her back and abdomen, and 5 ribs are fractured. A black towel has been wound around her wrists and tied. A grey electrical cord binds her ankles and loops around her neck, tied to a chair nearby. Importantly, she is wearing 4 gold rings, one of them set with a diamond. They're still on her fingers. Claire Acocks lies nearby. Her throat has also been cut. Her wounds are fewer, but deeper. A clear wrap has been fastened around her neck. Both women have injuries to their hands. The particular injuries a forensic pathologist can identify and name without hesitation. Defensive wounds. They fought back. The cash register has been opened. Someone has used a transaction for 20 cents. There are no single items in the salon that cost 20 cents. To open it, approximately $900 is gone. Claire's $500 from an old wallet, the one she was saving for the trip to see her new grandchild. Around $180 that Margaret was carrying, the contents of the till, and a cheque. However, 4 gold rings worth far more than $900 are left in place on a dead woman's hand. Was it robbery, but the killer got spooked and left in a hurry, forgetting the rings? Or was this made to look like a robbery? The murder weapon, a knife with a sharp edge, according to pathologists, is never found. But the pathologist does note something else. There are narrow, round puncture wounds on Margaret's body. It's a different instrument to the knife, something with a cylindrical metal tip, something like the end of a tail comb, the long-handled, metal-tipped implement you will find in every hairdressing salon in the country. So one of the weapons used to carry out this horrendous attack was already in the room. It had been all along. Victoria Police Homicide Squad detectives fly in from Melbourne within hours. They're led by Detective Sergeant John Morrish, an experienced investigator who will spend years of his life on this case. Also, sadly, at the Portland Police Station that evening is a young junior constable named Tim Acocks. He's Claire's son. Over the months and years that follow, the investigation becomes one of the largest ever mounted in regional Victoria. 5,000 people are interviewed, more than 1,100 reports are filed, and detectives travel to every Australian state. The husbands of the 2 murdered women, Peter Acocks and Robert Penny, are looked at first, as they always are. Peter Acocks was golfing. His alibi holds, and he's eliminated within days. Robert Penny tells detectives he was at home all afternoon. He was building a swing set in the backyard. His granddaughter, the 5-year-old that we mentioned, was with him, and she can confirm it. So he's also eliminated within days. As a result, the investigation turns outward. The smelter workers, the transient population, a man on a boat, a man in the pub, a man nobody can quite remember or fully place. And then, on the evening of May the 3rd, 1991, before the newspapers have reported any details, before a press conference has been held, before any information about the nature of the injuries has been released publicly, Robert Penny picks up the phone and calls one of his children. He tells them how their mother died. He tells them she went quickly. He tells them about the tail comb. The next day he says the same things to Peter Acocks, Claire's husband. This particular detail that Robert Penny has described The metal-tipped tail comb, the instrument used on his wife's body, hadn't, to this point, appeared in any newspaper. It had not been released by the police. It would not be released by the police. The murder weapon was never recovered from the scene. Victoria Police would maintain for the next 3 decades that there was only one way Robert Penny could have known about the tail comb. Heartbreakingly, one of the central figures in this story was just a child when it occurred. Her name, to protect her privacy, isn't used here. Researchers and journalists over the years who have written about the case call her Alice. What we do know is that she is the daughter of Jacqueline, and Jacqueline is the daughter of Margaret and Robert Penny. And on the morning of Friday, May the 3rd, 1991, Alice was just 5 years old. Her grandmother usually took her to the salon with her on those Friday appointments. And Alice has her hair braided while she's there. She knows the place. It's familiar. But on that particular morning, before Margaret leaves, there is a disagreement. And Alice will carry the memory of that disagreement for her whole life. The memory of her grandparents at the front door, fighting over her like a tug-of-war. Margaret desperately wants to bring her, spend some time with her granddaughter. But Robert is insistent that she stay. And so she does. And Robert builds her a swing in the backyard. As we know, that afternoon Margaret Penny is murdered in the shampoo room of the old London coiffure. When Alice is old enough to understand what happened, what really happened, she understands it alongside that memory of her grandmother who wanted her to come along, walking out the door alone. By the time she's a teenager, Alice has formed a theory. She'll say so publicly. She believes Robert hired someone to kill Margaret for $20,000. She even gives evidence at the 2017 coronial inquest, a key witness for the proceedings. Coroner Hawkins considers both things, the tug-of-war at the door and the hitman theory, but she gives neither much weight. Alice's recollection of the morning, she finds, is inconsistent in its detail, and the hitman figure is unsupported by any evidence. When Alice gives that evidence, she's grown, living in Los Angeles, working as an actor and a writer, and she spent years developing a film based on what happened to her grandmother. And she's not finished with this story. And let's go back to 1991. Within days of the murders, the investigation has its first concrete lead, and it comes from exactly the kind of man detectives want to hear from. Robert Menzel is a former mayor of Portland, not a man given to confusion or exaggeration. On the afternoon of May the 3rd, he was driving along Julia Street when he noticed something wrong. A man running from the direction of the rear courtyard of the old London Inn, cutting across the road in an erratic, uncoordinated manner, narrowly missing a street sign. The kind of movement that captures your attention and makes you remember. He can, and does, describe the man to police clearly. Approximately 170 centimetres tall, medium build, fair complexion, collar-length dark hair, and round, dark-rimmed glasses. As it transpires, this is the only direct eyewitness account of anyone leaving the scene that day. The only one. A composite image based on Robert Menzel's description is not produced until February 1994, 2 years and 9 months after the murders. And when it's eventually released, nobody is ever identified from it. But his sighting does bring us back to where this story started. 16 days before the murders, a stranger came into the old London coiffure without triggering the doorbell. He appeared behind Claire Acocks in the mirror. He told her he didn't like hairdressers, and he promised her that he'd be back. This man was never identified. The first question we have to ask about the horrible man is there any reason to think that Robert Penny was that man? And the answer to this one is a clear no. Claire Acocks knew Robert Penny. She'd cut Margaret's hair for years. She knew the people in Margaret's life. If her old friend's husband had have walked into the salon and behaved strangely, not only would she have identified him, but she would have said something about it. She wouldn't have described him to her friends as the most frightening stranger she'd ever encountered. The horrible man was someone Claire had never seen before. That much we can be pretty sure of. But there is a potential connection between the horrible man and Robert Menzel's description. As we mentioned earlier, the old London coiffure has two entrances. The front door is on Bentnick Street, and that's the door that's fitted with a bell that sounds when it opens. It's impossible not to ring that bell. But the back door, which leads out into the communal courtyard, doesn't have a bell. And that is the same courtyard Robert Menzel was driving past when he saw a man running away from the old London Inn on the afternoon of May the 3rd. During the day, on a Friday, the iron gates to that courtyard stood open. Anyone could walk in off the street, cross the courtyard, and enter the salon through the back without touching the front door, without triggering the bell. The horrible man, 16 days earlier, on April the 17th, as we mentioned, came in without triggering the bell. He appeared suddenly, behind Claire, in a part of the salon that a person entering through the front would be visible approaching. So he knew how to move through that building unseen. And on May the 3rd, Robert Menzel watched a man run from the direction of that same rear courtyard. The physical description Menzel gives, collar-length, dark hair, round, dark-rimmed glasses, doesn't match any named person of interest in this case. No investigator has publicly connected Menzel's running man to the horrible man of April the 17th. They might be the same person, but they might not. The investigation has never been able to say. But what can be said is this. If we are to believe Menzel's description, whoever came back on May the 3rd knew about that back door. And that opens a few possibilities. Maybe it was the horrible man. Maybe he'd conducted some reconnaissance 16 days earlier, and he came back knowing that he wouldn't trigger that doorbell, therefore giving him the element of surprise for his attack. But if you look at it from another perspective, it also gives credence to Alice's theory that her grandfather, Robert Penny, paid someone $20,000 to commit this horrible act. In that scenario, perhaps Robert Penny gave this person some inside information about how to enter and exit the building in the most inconspicuous manner possible. Or perhaps this was a complete, deranged stranger who discovered the rear entrance by chance. The truth is nobody knows. And so that's where we leave you at the end of part 1. 2 women are dead in a small town on the edge of Victoria. The doors were locked from inside and approximately $900 is gone. And a man who said he'd be back was perhaps seen running through a courtyard in the late afternoon. That's what we know. That's what Portland woke up to on May the 4th, 1991, and has been living with ever since. I'd like to give a shout out to Caitlin for requesting this episode. It's a fascinating tale and a heartbreaking one. In part 2, we go into the investigation, the leads that came to nothing, the suspects who died before they could be cleared, the fugitive who turned up a month later in the wrong place, and the husband that nobody looked at hard enough until it was almost too late. I'd love to get your thoughts though between now and part 2. Please leave a comment wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're at it, make sure you hit follow or subscribe. You don't want to miss the second part. If you can't wait for new Struth episodes to drop every week, why not subscribe to Struth Premium? You'll find the links to our Patreon in the show notes. That way you get access to new episodes 1 week early, and they're all ad-free. In addition, you get 1 episode of bonus content every week, and that includes Struth Abroad, Mysterious Tales from Overseas, some listener tales that have been sent in to me, and also interviews from time to time. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you all in a couple of days with the conclusion of this tale. Cheers.